I got a twirly seat down here. It's a big stool. Actually, you probably can't see it. No matter what I do, you can't see it. Hey everyone, Sleepy Reader here. I read Saga the other night. I thought this was an odd issue to make the 25-cent issue introductory thing. It did have a section kind of reviewing the whole story. It also seems to be a proponent of abortion in the 8th month of pregnancy. At least considering that a possible, I don't know. I shouldn't assume that what the artist puts in his story is what he believes, but that's how it seems. I'm not a big fan of that. But anyway, I won't go into that any further. So at the end of, on the letters page, rather than letters, he has his now sort of annual survey, which he wants you to cut out of the comic book and mail into him because he does not accept email. I am not going to cut it out and mail it into him. I don't really want Brian K. Vaughan to get my answers to this survey. He doesn't go online, he doesn't like the internet, so he won't see these answers here, and that's great by me. I thought it would be interesting to look at this survey and attempt off the cuff, off the top of my head, because I read them briefly, scanned them right after I read this issue a few days ago, Wednesday night. What's today? Friday morning. And anyway, I just thought for your entertainment, for my entertainment, I would read these questions. I'm having problems with my glasses right now, so I may actually act like an old man and go like this to read. How would you describe the generation that you're a part of? Baby boomer, Gen X, millennial, some weird new shit? Thanks for the weird new shit. Yeah, I was born in 1961. At some point when Generation X first became a thing, sometimes they would list the first date of that being 1964, sometimes 1961, not too often. I feel like I'm a little closer aligned to Generation X than I am to the baby boomers, because on a certain level, I've grown up hating the baby boomers. I was like a fraction past them. So, like, I graduated college in 1979. When I was in 6th grade, I remember thinking that thanks to the baby boomers and the new young generation, there would be peace and love and end of prejudice, and we would all have solar power and all of that stuff, which did not come to pass. The baby boomers went on to be the yuppies, and they were the me generation. And so I really disliked them. I disliked hippie music. I hated people who liked the Grateful Dead, kind of people in my generation who celebrated the hippie past. All of this strong language about hating things is not what I feel now, but definitely what I felt when I was 18, 19, 20, 21. So when the Generation X got identified, I felt closer to them, although generally the people who were in Generation X were in their 20s when I was in my 30s, I guess, the core of Generation X. But so in my late teens, early 20s, I embraced punk rock, and I hated hippies and anything hippie-like, and I felt the 60s had betrayed us and thrown us under the bus, or the 60s generation. And that's the problem with all these generational things. They divide things up, but there's really maybe a core 10-year period where the people who were really part of that generation are, and then there's people who were born a little too early or a little too late for that particular experience, but don't have a niche of their own. Because my parents were born a little too late to be part of, really part of the greatest generation, the the World War II generation. They were little children during World War II. If it's not too personal, approximately where do you fit on the 1948 Kinsey scale of human sexuality? If you own a computer, you're allowed to consult the internet websites, such as Wikipedia, for this question. I don't own a computer, Mr. Vaughn. I can't access Wikipedia. I do think the Kinsey studies were revolutionary at the time, but contain a lot of bullshit, and I really don't worry about where I lie on some scale of sexuality. For some people, I guess that's an important issue. It's not for me. What song did you, or would you someday like to, dance to with your spouse at your wedding? We did not dance at our wedding. We had what you would call gypsy jazz, Django Reinhardt music playing, two guitarists playing. It was a picnic where we had pie. And I can't think of any particular song I would like to dance to with my spouse at my wedding. Or I can think of 20 different kinds of music. Maybe we would dance to some Ramones or some Sepultura, or maybe we would dance to, what are those? The Gypsy Kings, or maybe we would dance to some King's Sunny Day. But really, anyway, that's all moot point for me. Roughly, how many comic books do you own, print and or digital? So, roughly, because it is very rough, I don't have a real count. I think I own about 7,000 to 8,000 comics in print, and I think I own possibly 2,000 comics digitally. Many more comics than that have come in and out of my collection, because I pretty much ran my collection down to maybe just under 1,000, maybe 800 or 600 comics as of maybe 2008, 2009, and then I got back into things via digital, and then wished I had not thrown out or given away. I don't think I mostly gave away all sorts of comics over the years. I grew up feeling after my first experience of realizing my comics weren't worth what I thought they were worth, which was back in 1977 or 78, I always had a jaded view of the idea of collecting them for value, and I kind of grew up moving all the time, and so as an adult just viewed everything as kind of temporary, and only recently realized, hey, I wish I had all this stuff, and that it has the personal value, whatever its monetary value is. Let's see. What kind of kisser are you? I am whatever kind of kisser my wife says I am. Ideally, who would play you in a movie of your life? That is something I never ever think about. I don't know what it is about this kind of idea of what actor would play you. Some kind of weird ego trip that people go on for a minute. Maybe Sting could play me. Or no, you know what? Gene Simmons could play me. Well, what do you think about President Trump? Oh, you want to know what I think about President Trump, do you? I think he would make a very bad used car salesman. If you could have the powers of any of the X-Men, which character would you choose and why? Kitty Pryde. It seems pretty obvious to me. What was the saddest moment of your life? What kind of business is it of Brian K. Vaughan's what the saddest moment of my life is, and what kind of judgment is he going to play on that? What little ego trip does he get off on asking these questions? I don't really know what the saddest moment of my life is. I don't have it categorized. the deaths of many people are usually the saddest moments. Are we actually living inside of an elaborate computer simulation? Are you sure? I used to have fun with that question. I had a friend who really took that kind of question seriously. He was a philosophy major in college. He still, I think, does a podcast about philosophy, surrealism, and Marxism. But I always thought it was an amusing question. We can't tell. We don't know. We could be inside the mind of some being, which we call God. We could be inside a computer. We could be some quantum fluctuation of particles that every now and then coalesces into being something like an ordered universe, and we experience it jumping, like there's fluctuations that we're unaware of where everything becomes chaos and then it comes back to order, and then it becomes chaos, then it comes back to order, and we'll never know because we only know the ordered part and the chaos just goes away from our perception. We are only, philosophically, we are only perception. We only know what we perceive, and there's nothing more. Do I let that worry me? I let that worry about me. I let the quantum flux of God's brain worry about me, but I don't worry about it. Would you please describe a recent experience with an immigrant? Yeah, I was talking to my mom on the phone the other day. She was fine. Everything was good. She immigrated to the United States in 1948. What else would you like to know, Mr. Vaughn? Was there some point to you asking me about this immigrant thing? Do you want to be more specific? If you had a G.I. Joe style code name, what would it be? I didn't read G.I. Joe comics. I don't know the G.I. Joe style code names. Is it like Snake and things like that? Whatever. I would like to go back and find the Herb Trimp G.I. Joe comics. I always like Herb Trimp art. I'm sure they're good. They just sort of came out at a time where I would not have been interested in reading them. Should recreational marijuana be legalized across your country? My country is the United States. It is legal in Oregon now. Has been, I don't know, for a little less than a year. There's shops all over the place, saying... it kind of bugs me because there's like a billboard that I drive by every day coming home from work. I can't remember the exact words, but it basically makes it sound like smoking pot or buying pot at this store is medicinal, for relaxation and quality of life, etc. They can't say that about wine, an ad about wine. They can't say, for therapeutic value, drink this wine. So I think I was always for legalizing marijuana, but I think once it actually is legal where you live, you may have second thoughts about it, or how it is presented, what rules and laws there are about it. How do we control stoned people driving around? It's not the amount of time pot stays in your system is different than alcohol, so we need a whole different set of rules. So I'm fine with, I think as a general rule, I don't believe in illegalizing substances. I don't think it helps. I don't think the war on drugs or putting people in jail over drugs is useful, but I think we as a society need to put a lot of thought into all our legal drugs, whether that's marijuana or prescription drugs or alcohol. We have put quite a bit of thought into smoking now. But yeah, is it good to change your brain activity artificially too often? I don't think so. So anyway, I'm fine with it being legal. I'm fine with alcohol being legal, but I do think we need to have everyone really well educated on these things and discourage the concept of being stoned all the time, for instance, which was what people assumed when I was in high school. thanks to that baby boomer generation, what trickled down from them, what they thought was cool in their 20s, trickled down to 11 and 12 and 13-year-olds as a distorted reality of, hey, it's cool to be stoned every day in school. And that was, those people, many of them ended up in mental facilities, all kinds of lost children from that. What would you like engraved on your tombstone? How about goodbye? Do you have a favorite late night television host currently on the air? No, I don't watch TV anymore, especially late night television. If I'm up late at night, I'm going to read a comic book or watch one of my friends on YouTube. I used to like David Letterman 1 billion years ago. Then I got very tired of him. So far, how are you enjoying getting older? Snark, snark. How are you enjoying getting older? I'm enjoying getting older, but I'm not enjoying the approach of death. For me, age, other than the inevitable death at the end of the road, and the vague sense that you shouldn't tell people how old you are and you ought to pretend you're younger than you are, eliminating that, age has been an increase in confidence, an increase of sense of self, the creation of the self. That's what I'm all about, the creation of your soul, if you will. So age is a good thing. Getting older is a good thing. To be serious about it, I don't think Brian K. Vaughan is. I think he's after something. He's poking the bear. He thinks he's being clever. Do you mind that DC Comics is using the Watchmen characters in new stories, even though co-creator Alan Moore probably wishes they'd rather not? I do mind. You guys have heard me talk about that before. So, yeah, and I think it's sort of a personal thing. I think Jim Lee and Jeff Johns, I don't know about Dan Didio, but those two people have a certain relationship with Alan Moore on a personal level, and they're doing this to Alan Moore. They have many choices, and this is what they choose to do as single human individuals, to screw him over, to make him upset. I think they're enjoying it. I think there's some sadism involved, or some revenge. And DC probably made millions and millions and millions of dollars off of Alan Moore books because they've been selling ever since they've gotten in print. Their best-selling book this year is the book about the Joker, where the Joker paralyzes Batgirl. The Killing Joke. And The Watchmen, God knows how many copies The Watchmen has sold around the world and made huge amounts of money for DC. So I think it's, in any adult, civilized world with creative people, you would do what you would obey Alan Moore's wishes within reasonable limits, for his books and his creations. And I certainly buy into lots of arguments about, Alan Moore always works with creations that are derivative in some way himself, but there's something different going on there with the way they're using Watchmen. They could create Watchmen-like characters, imitation Watchmen books. Certainly many people have done that anyway. If you were going to be executed early tomorrow, what would you order for your last breakfast? Well, there's these really good cranberry walnut pancakes they serve at Paradox Cafe a mile or two away from here. I guess I'd order those. Will we discover alien life sometime this century? I think we will. What you mean by alien life? We'll discover a planet that more and more advanced techniques of astronomy will be able to tell us is probably containing life of some kind. Whether you mean intelligent aliens who fly around in flying saucers and can come visit us, who knows? Probably not, but I think we'll definitely discover some kind of alien life. microbes, forests, something. What is your greatest unfulfilled dream? Greatest of my many, 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 many unfulfilled dreams. I really don't know. I suppose to be a world famous author along the lines of Ernest Hemingway. Are you better at something than almost anyone? If so, please elaborate. No, I'm not better at something than almost anyone. There's a huge number of people in the world, many, many of whom are better or good at all kinds of things. What was the last feature film, if any, you loved so much that you had to own it on DVD? I can't remember what the last one was, but the one that I will always come back to is Baron Munchausen by Terry Gilliam. I always felt like I had to own that on DVD. And I own it on Blu-ray, but DVD too. Coolest birthday present you received before the age of 10? It's got to have been like a Major Matt Mason doll, but I don't remember specifically. Like, did it come with a moonwalker kind of thing, or was it with the spaceship? I can't remember. I had Major Matt Mason dolls in 1968, 1969, during the year that I lived in Palo Alto, California, and they must have been left behind when we drove back in our VW station wagon when we drove back to Connecticut at the end of our year in Palo Alto. And I really missed that Major Matt Mason. I wish they were cheaper to buy on eBay. In case Hamburger loses your envelope, I'm not sure what he's talking about there, he will definitely lose it. Would you please write your name and return address below so that any all prizes you might win could be sent your way? If I sent in this survey, I would not want any of his prizes. So I really enjoy reading Saga. Every time he puts out this survey, I really dislike Brian K. Vaughan. But hopefully that my answers have entertained you guys and told you a little bit about me. I don't think other people are as bothered by his questions as I am, but for some reason they really get my goat. And I may share a number of political views with him, but actually his approach to those political views makes me dislike them. And then on some things, like, say, the abortion, I probably don't share his opinions very much. Anyway, talk to y'all later.